Hello and welcome to the Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and the Pipedrive marketplace. My name is Bruce Bignell. I'm the sales director here at Evolve, and today it's my great pleasure to be welcoming Markus Leming, the co-founder of Outfunnel, an integration platform that syncs data between sales teams and marketing teams. Now, I'm super excited to be joined by Markus today for a couple of reasons. One, he's super passionate about his company and what he does, but he's also passionate about tech, racket sports, which is what my wife wanted me to say, cryptos, which I need some help with, and EVs. So EVs is something that's close to my heart as well. So we might get to chat about that. And also, he's as Outfunnel's co-founder. He's head of product, and I always find that that's a really interesting position to sit in as a head of product. He's going to be listening to what clients are saying, and he can then actually impact what the business is doing, not just from a board level, but actually from the roadmap from a product side. And Outfunnel is on the Pipedrive marketplace. So, Markus, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself and Outfunnel to our audience, please?
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me over, Bruce. And that's a great intro. I'm not sure what else what else is there to say, but no, yeah. So one of the co-founders, head of product and head of support, and yeah, building the world of syncing data and apps at Outfunnel. So I mean, our mission, goal, vision is really to unite the kind of the data silos of sales and marketing apps, which is kind of really, I mean, it's really top of mind for SMBs, and especially more and more SMBs are using more apps. They're digitalizing themselves, especially after Corona now. So huge need out there to really get the data syncing between different tools. We do everything with no code. So regular marketing and sales professionals can set it up. No developers really needed. It's really designed for SMBs who have like complex sales models, who use a CRM, long sales cycles. So typical companies are like real estate, construction, agencies, consultancies, SaaS businesses. Probably you haven't heard of any of these names. I mean, we don't have any of the big name, big companies in the world, but more of the kind of the backbone of the economies who actually drive the economy, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I mean, I touched upon it a little bit already, kind of the problem that's really out there. But I guess what it really comes down to is the fact that there's so many apps out there. They all generate their own data and they don't connect with each other. Because obviously, like for a CRM or for a marketing tool, their core product is building their application. So integrations often are like an afterthought, and that's where Outfunnel actually steps in. So our aim is to remove those data silos, sync all the marketing information to the CRM so that salespeople actually have context. They can focus on the hottest leads, close more deals, bring in more revenue, and at the same time, marketing people get all the new sales contacts in their marketing tool, and they can market to them. So it's kind of like a cycle or a kind of a reinforcing cycle where both teams help each other. And I think so we actually ran like a report recently, a revenue marketing report that we did it for the second year in a row, where I think it was around 30% of people that actually said that, hey, we're currently moving data manually. Huge amount, right? And then people spend around 2 to 5 hours per week to move that data. So that's what we're trying to kind of remove that waste from the system so that people can actually focus on value-adding activities.
Versus those the manual tasks with there's something you said there about the data silos, right? So and we might touch upon this a bit later. In fact, I will come back to that because it's something I hear every single day, right? But yeah, so it's the data silos. I'll be sure to come back to that. Now, a lot of our listeners are on Pipedrive. Some are considering the switch to Pipedrive or just a CRM in general. But what does a typical Outfunnel customer look like, and what does their, you mentioned a couple of industries there, but the size of the company, the
Mm.
kind of tech, what tech stack are they currently working with?
Yeah, great question. So I mean, I guess and I mean, it has evolved a little bit through the life cycle of our business as well. But I'd say there's like three big buckets where we see people coming into Outfunnel. So firstly, it's super small businesses, like let's say up to 10 people, where usually it's the CEO or the owner of the company who really has kind of set up their marketing tool like MailChimp, and then CRM like Pipedrive or HubSpot or whatever the other CRM is.
Yeah.
And then they want to get the data moving. And obviously, as a CEO owner, you don't really have that time to move that data manually. So they find Outfunnel, and then they kind of start syncing that data. The second group is, I would say, somewhere from like 10 to 100 employee companies where there's already sales and marketing teams, there's like marketing professionals, and then they need to actually show their sales team that they're marketing to their leads, right? That they're bringing in, or they're really warming them up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the second bucket. And the third bucket is kind of 100 to 250 employee companies, where usually sales ops, marketing ops people kick in, that want to set things up. So these are kind of the three buckets. I mean, we serve clients all around the world, so we're not really confined to any specific geography. Mostly it's really companies with that long sales cycle. So it takes anywhere from a month to a couple of years to close a deal. And typically those companies actually use a CRM, and that's where kind of Outfunnel really comes into play. So my co-founder Andres actually shares this story about the puzzle all the time as well. That I've probably heard like, I don't know, 100+ times. And I mean, every new employee that actually joins Outfunnel, he kind of sits them down, takes the whiteboard, takes the pen out, and really draws the puzzle, and then explains kind of how a SMB works. So I'll try to convey the same message here.
Yeah.
So basically, every kind of digitalized SMB hopefully has a CRM. So that's where they keep their contact database and add new contacts. So that's kind of one piece of the puzzle. Then the second piece of the puzzle is that how do you market to your leads, right? So you probably use like a marketing tool like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign out there. Then the third piece of the puzzle is that you probably have a website. I mean, these days, I guess with a website, it's pretty difficult to operate. And on the website, you collect leads, and so you likely have some forms either from MailChimp or from like Gravity Forms or Elementor Forms or any other form provider. And then the fourth piece is ads. So you actually want to remarket to those leads who come in, and you want to nurture them. And then Outfunnel kind of sits there in the middle, who's kind of like the brain of those SMBs, and brings all the data in sync with all of those apps. So, for example, if there's a new contact added to the CRM, let's say they came through the form from the website, they got added to the CRM, Outfunnel automatically syncs them over to the marketing tool. At the same time, we can start sync them over to the leads, Facebook leads tool, start remarketing, and then you kind of have this full circle there where everything is in sync. That's kind of the story of the SMBs. And I mean, in an ideal case scenario, a business that uses all of those four pieces is the ideal user or customer also for Outfunnel, really.
Yeah, and I guess it's a repeatable, growing business, right? So if one of those aren't, so if the data's not right, if they don't have a marketing tool or even thinking about that, plus the website and collecting data, plus the ads, if one of those are out of sync, it's not going to feed itself. So that's
So I guess what you
Outfunnel.
can do as well. I mean, what we've seen also from our users is that our customers is that even if you switch tools, right? Let's say you switch your form provider, it's no problem. You can simply plug and play that new form in, and everything will keep working. So in that sense, it's super. I mean, keeping data in sync firstly for SMBs is probably the most underused element to get your business growing, right? You want to have all the data in one place. You want to see the full circle of a lead or a business.
No, it is super important. So what makes Outfunnel different in that regard? Because what would you say makes Outfunnel different in a marketplace of either platforms or
So before I answer that question, I guess it makes sense to take a couple of steps back. So firstly, I guess it makes sense to look at how people are solving this kind of data syncing issue at the moment. And there's kind of a couple of different ways that people do that. So first, obviously, it's the manual sync or manual importing and exporting, where people just take the Excel sheet, export it, import it, super inefficient, lots of prone to errors, missing data, etc. Then second way people solve this is really that their tool that they use, like the CRM or marketing tool, they might have like a native integration that they've built, but because those apps or those CRMs marketing tools, they have their core product that they need to build and spend time on, then they don't really have the resources to make those native integrations very good. So they might do a couple of things here and there, but they don't really
I mean, they
sync
work,
everything deeply.
right? They
They
work.
work. Yeah, they work. But as soon as you want to kind of configure something or go a little bit more into depth, then they don't really play along. And then the third option is that people turn to like a very generic or universal data syncing tool, which there's lots of on the market as well. But over there, I mean, these apps are super universal, so they solve a lot of use cases, but they don't do any of them super well, right? It takes a long time to set them up. So, for example, if you want to set up a flow in an integration platform where a new lead comes in, create a contact in the CRM, and then create an activity. And then create a deal or update the deal. What you would need to do is you need to set up multiple steps there. That first look up the contact. If it doesn't exist, then create it, and it gets super difficult in the end. So a lot of people actually hire consultants to set up their syncing platforms, and then they often get very expensive as well in the end, which is obviously like top of mind for SMBs, right? So yeah, so where Outfunnel really differs is that we really focus on sales and marketing. So these are the apps that we keep connecting, and secondly, we do super deep workflows that are basically like pre-created by us, by our team, based on our past knowledge of working in sales and marketing. And then, so my co-founder Anders actually used to be the first head of marketing at Pipedrive over like I think it's 9 years ago or something like that. So he was there for a long time. That's where he actually initially got the idea of Outfunnel as well. But we'll get to that part of the story later on. And then we also, next to kind of those deeper workflows that are going to be pre-built, so you can really set things up in a couple of minutes. We also kind of sync engagement data that no other platform really syncs at the moment. So think about email engagement data. So if someone's email is sent, open, clicked, bounced, unsubscribed, so all of this data ends up back in your CRM. I mean, there's ways to set it up, but you need a developer, you need a consultant really to deep dive into it. So we make it super accessible for those SMBs at a fraction of the cost, basically, for their business.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I actually didn't know about the Andreas's Pipedrive experience there. That's really cool. I think it comes out from speaking to you. A couple of times we spoke. Like, obviously, as head of product and head of support, the sales and marketing world inside and out, right? So, and that certainly does come across. So, what does the what does a roadmap look like there? Because if we understand why you're different and the sales marketing at the core, what's the roadmap for Outfunnel?
Yeah, great question. So on one side, I guess it sounds a little bit boring from the outset, from the outside, but for us, it's super interesting. So, I mean, there's two things that we, at least for this year, that we're focusing on. So, number one, we want to build out a long tail of sales and marketing apps. So currently, we sync with I think 5 CRMs, 2 marketing tools, 2 added in a month, and then 6-7 forms. And then what we, and SMBs use different apps, right? So we want to build out the long tail of those apps so that more and more people can actually use Outfunnel. And the second element is that we want to make those connections even deeper than they are today, so that you can really get configure more details, but still make it easy to absorb so that you don't get stuck in like a mountain of checkboxes, so that things are just easy to consume, but really solve some of those use cases that we don't do yet. Because I mean, there's every day there's people who write to us on intercom or who we do demos with, and then they said that, hey, I love it already, I love that it gets all my data in sync, but there's this one thing that I'd also like to have, and then obviously usually they're not the only one, right? There's other people as well, so we do want to build those things out as well, so that we really are the deepest on the market, and kind of offer the best integration experience.
Yeah, I think that's it's looking after the customer, basically, giving them what they need, and so being head of support and being head of product, that there's a good alignment there. I'm just going to come back to that question I was thinking about earlier about the data silos.
Mm-hmm.
So with sales and marketing, data silos, and there's always the age-old battle between marketing, sales, and delivery. There's always those battles, but who starts and leads the conversation when it comes to kind of extending the olive branch here? Because I'm sure you've come across this, where some marketing teams don't necessarily realize that they're trying to drive leads for the sales. Like, that is their MO. Like, there is no business unless there's sales being made. So you can kind of get lost in the KPIs of marketing versus, so if there's not alignment between the two, you get this really, really dysfunctional relationship. But who, from your experience, does extend that olive branch and says, "Hey, I found this platform, Outfunnel. Let's give it a shot."
Yeah, interesting that you bring it up. So, I mean, mostly we see marketeers bringing that up, and then that's usually driven internally by the salespeople, because salespeople go to the marketeers and say that, hey, we see that you're sending out emails, but we have no clue who you're sending it out to, how they're engaging, so we are kind of flying blind, right? And then the marketing team, sometimes they try to solve that manually, but then they very quickly find out that it's very it takes a lot of time, and then they go out and try to find the tool that might do it manually, or sorry, automatically. But I mean, that kind of sales and marketing alignment or relationship in general, it's an interesting, bigger topic overall, because I mean, traditionally there's always been like the sales teams and marketing teams, and then there's always like this divide between them, and then they both have their KPIs, and then they kind of fight with each other, etc. But what we're kind of more looking at as well, and something that we're writing extensively about in our blog, is revenue marketing. So back in the days, sales and marketing, it made sense to have them as a separate team, but these days it makes sense to actually to have them work together and really strive for the common goal. So with bigger companies as well, you actually see these revenue marketeers leading both sales and marketing teams together. And that's kind of where we want to get more as well, that we don't want to see sales and market as separate things, but as one united front in a company that's kind of united by revenue, right? Because they both want to generate revenue, just they kind of look at it from different angles.
I thought about the concept of revenue first. I was head of a digital agency, one of their first new business people, to kind of taking it from the MD who'd been running it for 20 years, and but that was kind of more the delivery side versus the marketing side. So it was because it wasn't necessarily revenue generating to be putting work into a pitch, but actually, if you focus on revenue first, that doesn't mean money at all costs. That is to keep our business alive, we need revenues coming in. So how can we answer that? But it's I'm sure we could have a whole hour and a half on that for sure. I just want to touch on, so obviously Outfunnel is on the Pipedrive marketplace. Pipedrive is one of the 5 CRMs that you're currently on. What's the relationship? Obviously, I didn't know that your co-founder was not related to Pipedrive. I didn't know he was there early on in their journey. I mean, Pipedrive are 11 years old now. which is they say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? So they are stampeding away right now, hiring 400 developers in 2021, probably another 200 this year in 2022. So they're on a huge growth track. But what's your experience between the two systems? What do you like about them both? How do they integrate? And tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story about how I actually I'll kind of dive a little bit into my background as well, and then kind of try to find my way into your question or to answering your question as well. But so I mean, I started my journey kind of work proper kind of, let's say, technology journey in a Dutch company. It was like a media conference company, and then over there when I started as well, I think I was business developer. I think it was my first job title over there, and then we use Salesforce over there. And wow, coming into the tech space, and then really first time properly using those apps. And then starting with Salesforce was a hassle. I mean, that was pretty tough. And then pretty quickly, I mean, because I've always been into tech and I've kind of liked that angle. So then I pretty quickly started implementing Pipedrive actually. So that was probably like 8 years ago, something like that. I might be mistaken with the years here, but that was a long time ago. And then, with Pipedrive, it was so easy. Everything just worked. You didn't need a consultant to do like a small change or add a new field. So that was like the great part, and still is the great part about Pipedrive, right? Why it really stands out between all those other tools there. It's really simple to use. It's very clean, and then kind of that journey actually led me to kind of this Outfunnel journey as well of data integration. But I mean, that's really the kind of the most important thing I think about Pipedrive, the ease of use, and especially for SMBs. And then back in the days, I mean, when we launched Outfunnel, I think we were one of the first apps on the marketplace as well. So the marketplace has really been, I think, is one of the things that Pipedrive does very well compared to some of the other CRMs out there as well. So again, super simple to use apps, easy to access, and very affordable. And then you can just plug it in, and they play nicely with Pipedrive.
You scratched the surface of your Outfunnel journey there, right? So how did that come to you working at this agency in Holland? How did you meet your co-founder? How did Outfunnel and were you always head of support and product? What was the journey there?
Yeah, so I guess that started. So it all started in the Netherlands, kind of working for that other company. And I mean, I had kind of gone up in ranks from like business developer to account executive to head of commercial ops. And then at one point, I came back to Estonia, but I still kept working for the Dutch company. But then I ended up in like a co-working space over here, right? I mean, I was the only person in Estonia for that company. And then I found myself sitting across Andrus. And we had kind of briefly had a chat in the past. We've seen each other from somewhere, but then the problem was that both of our legs were very long, so we kept hitting each other, which was super annoying.
You thought, hello, sailor.
Something like that. And then, I mean, one thing led to another. I kind of, we went out for a lunch, and he said that, hey, I had just left Pipedrive. And then I had this idea, when I was in Pipedrive, I kind of, or he experienced firsthand that there's no marketing tool that integrates well with Pipedrive, and it's a hassle. And then he interviewed like 100 people to really understand where the problem is. So that's before building any lines of code. And then they kind of he got started with another co-founder, like a technical lead, to build kind of the first version. And then kind of the first funding was raised, and then I joined on board as well, because I had kind of been always there and kind of thinking along how to approach the different things, what are the kind of the first things to build. And then I joined as a co-founder. And then at first, I mean, we didn't have many customers, right? I mean, probably when we raised funding, we had like 10 customers or something like that. And then at first we really painstakingly wanted to speak with all our customers. So that was kind of the first thing I did at Outfunnel as well. So it was kind of like on the support side, taking the demo calls, talking with people, really setting up the workflows over there. And then both Anders and myself kind of looked at the product together. So Anders had that marketing experience, I had that sales experience, and then those kind of blended into one. But at one point, it made more sense, kind of Anders, to really go and take the path of the CEO and really focus on that and kind of lead the overall company. And then for me, because again, I've always been interested in those automating things, that technology overall, and that's when I kind of took up the role of product. And started to take responsibility of that, and here we are today.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, well, the product's looking very, very. It's a gorgeous looking platform. So,
Thank you
I think
very
it goes
much.
to the ease of use that you guys are aiming for. So, no, very, very good.
And for the listeners, we didn't agree on that with Bruce before. I didn't ask for a compliment.
No, true. Yeah, you can send me some beers another time. But some quick fire just for the as we looked around up, highlights of the integration or best use cases that you've seen.
I guess it's good one. I think it's the combination of Outfunnel with Pipedrive workflows, I would say, is an answer here.
Pipedrive workflow automation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's correct. So because Outfunnel syncs all the data into Pipedrive, then these get synced over as an activity, so they can act as a trigger. And then there's some pretty ingenious use cases that users have come up with where they basically automate their entire workflow. So they get like a new form fill. Based on that, they send a Slack message to their sales team, automatically create the deal, send them to their marketing tool. So they really, I mean, it sounds very simple in that sense, right? They're boring, but kind of the boring things are usually the things that really streamline the operations and bring in the revenue in the end.
I like that. Yes. So it's I mean, Pipedrive's workflow automation is underused in a number of places, but over what's the right way to put this? It's there are a lot of people we talk to. They want to use it and they tried to use it. They just haven't spent enough time to kind of give it a go themselves. You know, sometimes just write out what you're trying to automate on paper first. Does this work? Do I ever do this manually? So let alone automate it.
and that's the key, actually. So there's a good blog article about this as well, because when we started Outfunnel, we did everything manually. And I mean, all our trials, and we use Pipedrive on a day-to-day basis, right? So whenever you start a new trial in Outfunnel, we create the new deal in our pipeline, and then we sync all the data there. And move it automatically across the pipelines based on automations. But when we first started, we did all of that manually, right, in Pipedrive. So there was a new trial created in our back office system. We went to Pipedrive, manually created a new deal, and set everything up, moved it between the pipelines based on your usage. It took a lot of time, but at one point, right, it was too much. So what we did, we started taking those processes apart and automating it one by one. And now we're the point where we are at the moment is that this system just works automatically by itself.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. See behind the curtain. So what's the top tips? And I like two things: top tips for newbies, and for those that are looking to excel. What would your top tips there be?
Yeah. So for newbies, I would say. Kind of comes back to the previous story, but I guess the headline would be do things that don't scale, but just like try setting things up, test, iterate, and see what works, what doesn't. And then based on that, you can always change things later, right? Just get started. And I guess that's kind of like the overall startup mantra that start going, see what happens. If you fail, you fail. Just do things differently, learn from it, and take the next step. I guess that's the first thing. And then and try to kind of use the platform as on a daily basis, especially if it's CRM. I know, like with the CRM, I guess for salespeople, especially like if it's a new tool, people don't really want to use it. So it's really important to kind of implement it properly, so that you actually it becomes secondhand. And then second thing for the experts out there, I would say something about the integrations or marketplace and how you can extend the powers of the CRM with other tools, so that if there's, I think you spoke about the calling software before, right? How can you make that more efficient? Check the marketplace, set up a calling software, and see how you can make that CRM a powerhouse for yourself. So that's really the center or the brain of your business, where you add everything. And then obviously automation, because in the end, automation is something that will save you heaps of time.
It's actually quite funny. A number of businesses that haven't even considered that you can have your calls recorded, activities tracked, with next steps or text messages happening after a call, or automated voicemails.
It's incredible. And I mean, education is a big part of it as well. So that's why when we do support and customer success, we try to educate the user as much as possible as well. So if there's something that, so we have a lot of customers actually who come to us as well and ask about a completely other tool that's not our software. And then they just ask, have you had experience with it? How do I set it up? And we're always happy to help. Because in the end, I mean, we want the customer to be successful and to really use the tools that they're using. So education, it plays a big role in this.
Definitely. Yeah, it's kind of why we started this podcast as a journey, right? Because I think I said to you when I first met you, there are so many apps on the marketplace, we can't know them all. But however, when someone reaches out to a consultancy for help on their Pipedrive, we, as a tech consultant, we should know every single app. But there are over 400, and Abby over at the Pipedrive Ecosystem Partnerships at Pipedrive, he wants to get over 1,000 or more. So it's going to be very difficult for us to know them all inside out. However, this is educational for us as well, certainly for me.
Absolutely.
As well. So last one on the quick questions. So these are quick questions, long answers.
I missed the concept.
I know Pipedrive. Some people at Pipedrive do listen to this. So, and I know you probably got your own insights. But any feature requests you would like to have them focus on?
Yeah. Wow. Caught me on guard here. Feature requests. I would say. I mean, there's something that we use a lot. It's a very small detail, right? Probably the listeners don't even care too much about this, but it's very important for us. But I think that was a couple of years ago when Pipedrive rolled out that Pipedrive panel system, where you could kind of extend your app and create that and add a panel next to every deal or profile. And it's great, right? It pulls information directly from the system, from Outfunnel, and then surfaces it there. But then a big thing the customers always say is that, great, it's there, but can I do something with it, right? People want to actually search information through there. So obviously there's some technical limitations here and there that come into play. But that's one big thing that we've been talking to them in the past as well. I mean, it's not super critical, but it's still something that kind of extends the workflows.
Yeah, the module pieces and
exactly.
the API modules. I'm sure that there was an update to it last year. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen that, but in fact, I'm sure you've seen that. It's very good because it's certainly an important piece for those that are trying to get the most out of Pipedrive, right? And
for the power users.
We live in a world where we actually support a lot of people that are already on Pipedrive. So they come to us if they're kind of reaching the limits of what they think it can do, or maybe what it can do. So then we can either help them stay on it and they stay sticky to Pipedrive, because we have to build some automations elsewhere that plugs into it. So I think these businesses have grown with Pipedrive, a number of them. So it's quite an interesting use case. So,
all in all, Pipedrive is, from my point of view, used it for several years. I mean, they've come a long way, and it seems that with the number of users they have and the way that they're growing, they must be doing a lot of things right. So all in all, super happy with them.
So what's the best way to stay up to date with the latest Outfunnel? I know you said you got a blog. Is there
Yeah.
any other channels there?
Yeah, blog's a good place. I mean, we write about everything sales and marketing on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. So there's a lot of good information there about everything. You can always reach out to us. So if you're giving a go at the tool, you can always schedule a demo with us, and we'll be happy to kind of show you around and be kind of the marketing consultants in a way there as well. Don't want to take your job, Bruce, but
Well, it alleviates some of the pressure. Thank you.
yeah. And then, but other than that, I mean, the regular social channels, Twitter, Facebook is where we post all the new things as well. So yeah.
Nice, brilliant. Well, we'll be sure to put any trial links
Cool.
Below this. Was there anything in particular that you wanted to say about the trial link, or?
Yeah, good that you bring that up. So we happy to offer a 25% discount code actually to everyone who sign up through this podcast. So for 3 months. So all you need to do is follow the link that you have in that you'll add there, and then takes you to a landing page. You can sign up, and you get 3 months 25% off. It's a bargain.
Nice. And for those that have the pleasure of looking at our faces on YouTube, behind Markus, he's actually got a sale. Ends today, but it's not ending today. It's just starting. Just starting.
We'll need to have another one made.
We'll get another one next time. Yeah. So I really appreciate that, and that's it for this week. So if you'd like to get a demo, the links are below. If you'd like to get a trial, was that 25% off for the next 3 months?
Yeah.
Brilliant. We have the link in the show notes. And so thank you for listening to Evolve Pipedrive podcast, where we talk all things Pipedrive, sales, apps, and Pipedrive marketplace. If this has been useful and you've found it insightful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with someone else that's going to enjoy this conversation as well. If you're finding it on YouTube, check us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where you find your podcast. And it will be with you soon. Markus, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers. Ciao.